It's not uncommon as a teacher to have students who are a bit behind the curve in certain aspects, but 99.99999% of the time, they are keen on something. They might not understand how to identify a noun or what theme is, but they somehow know how to make a mean plate of nachos. You learn pretty quick to not judge fish for their tree climbing ability, you know? I thought this was the rule when I was teaching until I met Kevin. Kevin isn't his real name, but it doesn't matter because he can't spell it anyway. Kevin was a student of mine during my last year of teaching. He came to my classroom with very little to show for his academic past. He had moved a few times and thus was missing a lot of typical test scores that we used to try and ballpark their ability. Don't worry, it was a ballpark. We didn't make major decisions until we actually had a chance to talk and work with the student for a bit. I thought, that's fine. I'll just do some one-on-one with Kevin and see what's up. One-on-one with Kevin was like conversing with someone who'd forgotten everything in a freak, if not impossible, amnesia incident. There was no evidence that he had learned anything past the second grade, and now he was in ninth grade. Flabbergasted, I figured we'd get more serious with this. If he was going to be in my class, I needed to know why and how. I decided to meet with him, his guidance counselor, his parents, and another teacher to see what was really going on. This is where it all became clear. It was by some incredible fluke that his family hadn't been wiped off the face of the earth years ago. Odds are his entire heritage was based on blind luck and some type of sick divine intervention that saves his family every time a threat presents itself. Kevin was the genetic pinnacle of this null achievement. Even my instructional lead, a woman who could find a redeeming trait in a Balrog, failed to see any reason this kid or his family should be alive today. So here's a list of events that made it abundantly clear that God exists and he's laughing uncontrollably. Kevin jaded again the next day. This is ninth grade. I have no idea where he got crayons. Kevin's dad wrote tuition checks and mailed them to me, his English teacher. This was a public school. When I gave it back to Kevin, voided to give to his dad with a brief note explaining that this is a non-grade. I have no idea where he got crayons. Kevin's dad wrote tuition checks and mailed them to me, his English teacher. This was a public school. When I gave it back to Kevin, voided to give to his dad with a brief note, his English. Kevin was removed from the culinary arts program after leaving a cutting board on the gas stove and starting a fire. Twice, Kevin threw his lunch at the school resource officer and tried to run away. He ran into a door and insisted it wasn't him. Kevin stole my phone during class. I called it, it rang. He denied that it was ringing, not that it wasn't his, not that he did it, though he denied that the phone was actually ringing. He tried it 3 times before the end of the year. Kevin tased himself in the neck before a football game. Kevin kept a bottle of orange Kool-Aid in his backpack for about 4 months. He thought it would turn into alcohol. He drank it during homeroom and threw up. Kevin say the N-word a lot. Kevin was white. The high school was 84% black. Kevin got beat up a lot. Kevin stole another student's iPhone and tried to sell it back to them. Kevin didn't understand that his grade was dependent on tests, quizzes, homework, classwork, and participation. Kevin finished his first semester with a 3% average. He tried to bribe me with $11. Kevin stayed on a girl and said, "You should get out of those wet clothes." The girl was the Spanish student teacher. Kevin didn't know dogs and cats were different. Kevin stays his first semester with a 3% average. He tried to bribe me with $11. Kevin stole another student's iPhone and tried to sell it back to them because here's a Greyfire became a really head-flying sell with stars carriage to make. Kevin regularly tried to cheat on assignments by knocking the pile over, grabbing one before I had picked them all up, and then writing a name on it wherever there was room. Kevin had several allergies, but neither his parents nor he could remember what they were. They were very concerned that the holiday party, it's high school, we don't have those, would have peanuts. When they finally got a doctor's note, he was allergic to amoxicillin. Kevin and his parents took a trip to Nassau. How the fuck did they even get airline tickets? And forgot all their luggage at home. I didn't believe him when he told me until I talked to him, Mom. Kevin and his parents took a trip to Nassau. How the fuck did they even get airline tickets? And forgot all their luggage at home. I didn't believe him when he told me until I talked to him, Mom. Told me first thing when I saw her at the bi-weekly meeting. Kevin ransed all their luggage at home. I didn't believe him when he told me till I talked to her mom, who told me first thing when I saw her at the bi-weekly meeting. Kevin's grandfather apparently died in a chainsaw accident. I can only assume God was looking the other way that day. I went to high school with this guy who probably had about 3 brain cells. He was a stereotypical redneck. Here's a list of the stupid stuff he did that I can name off the top of my head. During a music class where we had a work period for some project, he asked the teacher if he could go make up a test he had missed earlier that week for a different class. Teacher said yes. He left the room, went into the band's instrument storage room, took a nap, then got really pissed at the teacher for not letting him make up the test. In the same music class, we had to use GarageBand to create a soundtrack for something, and there were some guidelines we had to follow. Instead of following the guidelines, this kid just filled the timeline with random loops, admitted to doing that, then tried to argue with the teacher about his grade for the project. 20. He recorded his mixtape in the school bathroom, then deleted it about 3 weeks later because everyone made fun of him for it. The only line I actually remember was from a diss track where he said, roasted in a pan of ovens, started fights with 4 different people, and got his ass kicked 3 times. The one guy who didn't beat him up was 2 years younger, 6 and 15 centimeters shorter, and probably about 80 pounds, 36 kilograms lighter. One fight was started because someone made an incest joke about him and his cousin. One was because someone made fun of him for the previously mentioned line from his mixtape. One was because someone made an incest joke about him and his cousin. One was because someone made fun of him for the previously mentioned line from his mixtape. One was because someone was calling him by his rapper name. It was a Thing lawnmower. Got caught watching porn during class on his school laptop. Responded by punching it and breaking the screen. Tried out for the baseball team one year. Couldn't go back for a fly ball without falling on his ass. Missed every pitch during batting practice. And got mad at the coach for not letting him on the team. We hired a girl a couple years ago. I told her where the manager's office was her first day. Second day, she asked me where the manager's office was, so I walked her to the door. Third day, she asked me where it is again. Our manager chewed out the girl who trained our new recruit for not teaching the job properly. The trainer pulled out her phone and showed the manager a picture of the girl wearing the uniform backwards and said, "Look at this. This is untrainable." Oh Lord, strap in. This is a ride. Let me tell you about Sarah. Now, Sarah was, and remains to be, one of the sweetest girls I've ever met. She's the sort of girl who would give you the shirt off her back and not think twice. The sort of woman who would allow a stranger to stay in her home without question. She routinely gives money to charity and helps volunteer. She really is an angel. But Christ, is that girl dumb. When we were in high school, I mentioned that I one day wanted a small farmette, something just big enough so I could raise chickens. I've always liked chickens, and you get fresh eggs too. She looked at me like I had 3 heads and said, if you want eggs, you need goats. This girl had made it to our senior year in high school without doing carria, Rila. Sarah piped up with, "Oh my God, he isn't sick. He just got his period. I've had mine for like 4 years." Sarah and I were once driving her car in the late 90s, and her car battery died. We were only a mile away from my house. So I walked there, grabbed my car, and headed back. I parked and lifted her hood. She asked what I was doing. I told her I was going to connect the jumpers because her battery had died. This girl looked right at me and said, "My car runs on gas, not batteries." She legitimately had no idea that fish, the food from actual living fish. She decided she wasn't going to eat meat anymore. She would text me at all hours asking if the food she was about to eat was meat or not. I literally had to coach this woman. We were well out of high school at this point on what meat products come from what animals. She still believed that tofu isn't from an animal. She thought France was in Canada. She thought all of South America was like North America and one single country. She didn't believe that there was a North and South Pole. She asked me how planes ever got where they were going when the Earth was spinning so fast, and then followed up with, "Oh, I get it. They just go up and sit still until the place comes to them, right?" My sister-in-law once called me to ask, "How long is 90 days?" I replied, 3 months. She said, "Thanks," and hung up. Once called me and asked, "Do you have a calculator nearby? I'm applying for a bank job and need help." She had a smartphone, but I knew not to bring that up. I got my phone out and told her I was ready to help. What's 20% of 200? My wife recently attempted to explain to her, unsuccessfully, what do I do when I get to R59 South? She was like, what do I do when I get to R59 Prover? Diese Hibbels of Volden Tench Prog Forers 2% of 2 for mice. And what's 20% of 200 Emmerich Pillway 8? What do I do when I get to, or what? The 20th fence of 200 Emmerich Prickfist Town. I once gave her directions somewhere. It was something like, get on Beltway 8. Take the SPA 30 years beyond 2. 21 at South 80. What do I do when I get to red light at X intersection? What do I do when I get to R59? Take the HPA T2 dates and times. I once gave her directions somewhere. It was something like, get on Beltway 8. Take the Expiator HU59. HETU U54 Family and Coupem Place. My sister-in-law wanted to just be Olin to TUL. 20 Joy Studio Mall 265. What's this day when I want to get to HEA 59? Take the H159 South. She was like, what do I do when I get to Hesburn 50? She was getting upset at how much money we were spending on gas. We were driving a box truck that got like 10 MPU. We're standing at a gas station and she's staring at the pump meter, writhing her hands. She turns to me and says, let's stop at gas stations more often so it doesn't cost as much. Okay, Mom. She thinks that any website account that uses her email address as the username also uses the password to her email address. I've explained this no less than 25 times. She absolutely cannot understand why I buy 30 packs of toilet paper for $19. She pays $5 for 4 rolls because it's cheaper. I have stopped trying to explain this, but it keeps coming up. She's like upset with me about it.